Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Technology for Learning Professional Learning webinar on getting started with Google Delegated Admin. We'll be getting underway in just a moment. So we thought we would just pop that holding slide up there to let you know we'll be underway in about a minute's time. So looking forward to talking with you soon, and we'll be back in just a moment. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome again to this Technology for Learning Professional Learning webinar on getting started with Google Delegated Admin. My name is Joel Cohen from the Technology for Learning team, and I'm here today to introduce our main and awesome guest speaker, Stu Hassick, who is going to run you all through some of the tips and tricks on getting started with Google Delegated Admin. Now, to begin our webinar today, what I would like to do is ensure that we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you're all working today, and we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today. I know I'm here in Redfern on Gadigal land, and very happy to be able to be in this webinar where we're talking, we're sharing, we're passing on our stories of how to work with such an awesome tool such as the Google Delegated Admin console, very much in the way that people in times past and our traditional owners have passed on their learnings to other people. So a very important way to do that today. Now, in case you hadn't realised, this is a little bit of an experiment for the Technology for Learning team, starting to run a webinar inside Viva Engage with this our first event. And so we're really keen to hear your feedback. We might make a few mistakes as we run through this today, as it's a new experience for both Stu and I, as well as some other members of the team. So we are really keen to hear your feedback and apologise in advance for any little errors that we make. But what's in store? Well, you can see we've got a really exciting agenda that Stu is going to run you through today. How you can get started with Chromebooks and how you can enroll and manage them. What the Google Admin Console is and how you can become that Google Delegated Admin person to look after the Admin Console, and also some really great tips and tricks to actually manage your whole Chromebook fleet from one location. And you can see some of the exciting things that Stu is going to run through for you today. That is for sure. So that is the plan for today. Now, Stu, it's time for us to get started, I think, with this exciting session. So I am going to ask you to maybe think about sharing your screen there, Stu, and we can see what's going to happen in just a moment. So Stu's going to share his screen there for us, and you're going to take it away for us, Stu.
I am indeed. Thank you very much, Joe, and welcome to everybody. We have currently 62 people joining us live. It will hopefully grow as we continue, but this is something that's very new. Yammer Live Events is something that we've never used before in the department. It gives a very different experience to webinars and Microsoft Teams and Zoom sessions that we've all been used to in the past. What's happening now is this live event is appearing in a community in Yammer, which is the Google Chromebooks community, and everybody that's a member there is able to see this right now live. But at the same time, at the end of this session, when we finish our live event, it will appear automatically as a conversation with the video, with all of the resources, with all of the chat below it. So feel free to ask questions as we go along with this. Put your contributions into the Yammer feed. It's very similar to the way you're used to contributing to Yammer in other communities, so feel free to do that. And we also have Paul and Tommy from our Learning Tools team who are helping us answer any questions as we go through the Yammer feed, and Joe might even collate some of them and help me to go through them at the end if there's any need to answer any questions live as we go through. Now, what we're looking at here is the Technology for Learning website, and it contains a whole lot of different resources. And one of those resources that we have under the resources menu is device management resources. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about managing different devices. And in today's case, we're talking about Chromebooks. So clicking on device management resources, you'll see under the little menu on the side, there's a whole lot of different ones. So Windows, main learning displays, iPads, NAPLAN, and so on. But Google Chromebooks is the one that we're in particular interested in today. There's a video here for Chromebook first time setup. So this is where you would follow the instructions for how to enroll your Chromebooks that you receive. Now you've got to remember with our Chromebooks, we do have a mandated contract. It does say that you're supposed to be buying Chromebooks through EdBuy, or you receive them through various rollouts that the department offers you. And the benefit of doing it, for getting your Chromebooks that way, is that they will come with a Google Education license, which is what's required to allow you to enroll that new Chromebook that you've received into the department's Google domain. And the steps that you've got on the screen here will tell you how you can enroll your Chromebook. And that video there is one that Joe and I created some time ago that takes you through that process on a step-by-step basis. Now, to enroll a Chromebook into your Google or into the department's Google domain, you do need to be aware of one really important step. One of those steps that you have is you have to authenticate as part of the enrollment process. And if you're a staff member who is not who is not the primary person or the school that you're enrolling that Chromebook into, you're not the primary person, or that's not your primary school, then you need to be aware that that Chromebook that you're enrolling is going to actually enroll in your primary school, and it could be a different one. So just be aware of that. If that's particularly a case where you're a TSO or you're a casual, because any staff member can enroll a Chromebook into the Google Admin console, but it will enroll into your primary school. And that may or may not be the school that you're intending that Chromebook to go to. So just be aware of that. And it's always important that the person who does authenticate for a enrollment of a Chromebook is a person who is associated with that particular school. Okay, so there's a whole lot of steps in here, and there's a whole section on getting more control with Google Delegated Admin. So what enrolling does is puts it into our Google domain, which sets a set of default specifications, configurations onto that Chromebook. So once it's enrolled, you can pull it out of its box, you can turn it on, and you'll get a screen very familiar to all of us, which looks like that, which is the department's logon screen, and automatically a student or a staff member could sign straight onto that Chromebook and start using it. It will automatically understand that you've got dead NSW Wi-Fi in your school. There'll be a whole lot of pre-configured settings for your Chromebook automatically as part of that enrollment. But with Google Delegated Admin, you can go a fair bit further. So this instruction takes you to a whole lot of information, and specifically it will take you to this website. So as part of the Rural Access Gap program, there was a procedure done to our Google Admin console that separated every single school into their own container. And by doing that, we now have the ability to delegate access to the Google Admin console for a particular school. So you could be a teacher at a school, a TSO at a school ICT coordinator, and you could be given access to your school's console, to your school's organizational unit, I should say, in the Google Admin console. And then by having that access, you can manage your subset of Chromebooks that are part of the department's Google Education domain. So this is how you get access to Google Delegated Admin. It's a principal function. They go through manage staff access. They'll follow some instructions. They'll find a staff member at the school. They'll grant access to Google Delegated Admin. It's actually this one here that's showing. I'll just blow that up a little bit. Google Delegated Admin, not this one that says ICT Plus. And they'll follow these steps, and you will get an email to say, hey, you're now the Google Delegated Admin for so-and-so school. And you can actually be the Google Delegated Admin for more than one school if the principal has agreed for you to do so. And that's useful in the case of a TSO, for example, who manages more than one school. So the Google Delegated Admin webpage, which you'll find this particular page, t4l.link/GDA. I've actually pinned a conversation at the top of this Yammer feed that has a lot of these links in it, so you'll be able to jump to those later on and get that information. Now, once you've been set up as a Google Delegated Admin, you'll want to start using the Google Admin Console. Now, the Google Admin Console, you'll probably go to YouTube and find instructions on how to use Google Admin Console, but it's different to what you'll get in our school, because remember, you're not a Google admin of our entire domain. You're a Google admin of a subset of our domain, being your school. So you might see a screen in YouTube when you want to find out how do I use Google Admin Console that looks like this, but understand that Google Admin Console for a delegated admin does not look like this. You do not have all of these functions. You look slightly different. So the way to get to it, you go to admin.google.com once you've been assigned a Google Delegated Admin, and you'll get a screen that looks like this. So it's slightly different to what you saw here because you only have Delegated Admin, which gives you limited controls to what you can do. There's some handy information on this screen, however. Product updates is a great place to go to. Remember, we're in the Google workspace environment, and Google is a cloud environment, and they are constantly changing things. So it's a good place to go to find out all of the different product updates. You can find out about all of the things that have changed in Google Workspace, because some of those might be interesting to you and things that you can pass on to teachers to say, hey, there's a new feature in Google Sheets, or there's a new feature in Google Slides, that sort of thing. You'll be able to find out about those basically as soon as they're released by looking at this particular console. But there's a lot of other things in here, and the place that we're going to go to is devices. Now, I'm not a teacher in a school. I'm the comms guy at ITD for the T4L team, and I don't normally have access to a school's Google Admin Console, but thank you very much to Georges Hall Public School, because they granted me, the principal there granted me access for the purposes of this session so that I can show you what you might be seeing in your setting at your school. So I just clicked on devices there on that little menu on the side, and what we'll now see is that there are 655 Chromebook devices in this console that I have now access to. I can look at those. I can do various different things. Now, as a beginner session, which is what this is, we won't be covering every single thing that's possible in the Google admin session that we're going to be doing here today, but we're going to be covering a lot of those really interesting and useful things, and you can get an idea of some of those with this little set of tasks that we're looking to cover on the left-hand side here as we go through. Okay, if we want to have a look at these 655 devices, what we can do is click on there, and it will take me straight into a list of every single one of them. Now, where do these Chromebooks actually live? What you've got in here is organizational units. And I really think it's important that you understand this, particularly if you're somebody who manages more than one school. Under educationnewsouthwales.gov.au, which is the top level of our Google domain, what we have here that we have visible to ourselves is an organizational unit called school staff and another one called school student. If I expand school staff, what I'll see is actually two different schools. SCH_3702, that's the format of the school that you will see for yourself. And the 3702 is your school's code. And in this case, that's George's Hall Primary School. If I click on that, what I'll see is that there are actually 650 Chrome devices at that school. And then I've got a second one here that I'm an admin of, and that's our test school, which is called 8 Central School, because ITD is at 8 Central Avenue at Everleigh. And we've just got a handful of Chromebooks that are in there. So in total, I've got 5 there, I've got 650 in there, but altogether in school staff, I have 655. So if you're somebody who manages more than one school, be aware that when you select different settings, they're going to apply to either one school or the other school that you work with, or could be even multiples. So you need to be really careful about what settings you apply to which school. Further to that, below here, you have school students. So again, I've got students that are in 3702 and students that are in 9068. And if I open up 3702, I can see further groupings in here for all of our year groups. Doesn't go down to roll classes, it's just year groups. But I can apply to my Chromebooks and to users within my year groups different settings. So these are things that you need to understand. If I click on year 4 here, year 4 has no Chrome devices because all of the Chrome devices live under the school staff for your school. You can actually move them. We're not going to talk about moving them in this beginner session, but we're going to actually do an advanced session in term 3, and we're going to cover some more details that you can do, such as organizing these Chromebooks into different year groups so that you can even apply further settings more granular on a more granular basis. So let's have a look at this this particular table that we have here on the right hand side. So we've got serial number, we've got the status that says they're provisioned, which means it's enrolled. We've got an asset ID, and we can actually set these ourselves to be whatever that we want them to be. When you do an enrollment in the first place, it often asks you what's the asset ID, and you can put that in at that point, or you can actually come in here and edit these on this table. You can see when it was enrolled, you can see when it was last synced, so when was it last turned on and used. What location is it in, and that's the school's code. You can have some notes in here. I'll show you how you can edit those in a sec. You can see things like the auto update expiration, which is Chromebook's way of saying that device is too old, we're not going to support it anymore, Google's not going to, we're not going to apply any security updates to it anymore. And that's when you need to start thinking about planning for replacing that device and stopping using it. You can see who actually enrolled the devices. You can see what version of Chrome OS they're on, so 113 is there, and so on. Now, some of that information is useful, some of it may not be, but what you can do is actually customize this table that you see here when you first come in to something that may be a bit more helpful to you. You can go in here to manage columns, and you can say, oh, I'm not really interested in some of these, like location, for example, doesn't mean anything. I only manage one school. So I could turn that off and say that, okay, every device in here is at my school. Or I can add a new column and I can say, okay, let's add the model of the device in. I'm interested in knowing what the model of that Chromebook is. So let's put that in and let's actually move it up here in the list. So after asset ID, I'll put the model. Let's come in here, add another column. Maybe I want to know who the last user of that particular device was. So that's added most recent user, and I can put that somewhere in here as well. And then if I hit save on here, that table will reformat itself. And now I can see models. So I can see this one's a Chromebook, I can see this one's an Acer Spin, I can see this one's a Lenovo, and I can see who the most recent user of this particular device was. So there's some configuration that you can do in that gear there that says manage columns. So have a little play with that, because that's definitely a good way that you can have a more meaningful list of devices at your school whenever you go into looking at your devices in the admin console. Another thing that you can do up here is export. So if you click on this export button, it'll download a CSV file, which you can then open in Excel, and you'll have something like this. So this is, I downloaded this earlier to save a little bit of time, but you'll get a device ID, a serial number, a model, and all of that information, basically every field that it has related to each Chromebook is visible in this spreadsheet. You can save that off as a spreadsheet somewhere else, sort it, do all sorts of different things with it. Could be a handy asset register for your Chromebooks, easily exportable from the admin console. What else will I want to show you in here? Okay, if you wanted to select devices, you could say, oh, I've got a problem. Some people have reported problems with our Chromebooks. This one are showing up with some problems. People aren't able to log on. It's saying there's not enough space on it because we've got too many profiles. They've been shared too many times by different people. You can do different things in here. So you can select different devices by their serial number typically. And what you can say is you can move it into one of these other organizational units, and we'll talk about that next time. We won't do that right now. You can disable them if you want to for whatever reason. I'll actually demonstrate disable shortly because it could be a handy little function. If they are devices that you're wanting to get rid of, there's a function for deprovisioning, and we'll talk about deprovisioning in the advanced session as well. But under more, there's another option here, which is reset, and that's a really great way that you can remotely tell a Chromebook to reset itself, and that will wipe out any of the local profiles on it so that the next person that uses it can log on, has enough space to use it, and it's ready to go. So that could be one really simple troubleshooting step that you could do from a single location to remotely fix a Chromebook. Very handy little function that you've got there. Okay. Let's say we don't want to select all those, but we want to find my Chromebook here. If I grab the serial number, what I can do is search or add a filter, and I can paste that filter in there or type it in if I know what the serial number is, and press enter, and it will find my particular Chromebook. That's this one that I've got here. I can click on the serial number and it will give me some details of this Chromebook. It'll give me the model, the serial number, the CPU model, some other useful information. The last time it updated, so the 15th of June, it did an OS update. The OS that it's running has got 114 on it. It was last rebooted on that particular date. The version's compliant. It's got an enrollment date of that. It's got a whole lot of other information in here. It's had 1 minute of activity, so I've just been playing with it over there on my left. I'm the current user, but I can see that 41 other people have used this particular Chromebook over time. It's got an IP address that it's using currently, and a whole lot of information about that particular device. Now, another thing that I can do, say that, for example, that device has gone walkabout. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere in the school. I can't find it. I want that person to who's got it to return it, or I don't want it to be used, or maybe it was stolen. Maybe there's a whole lot of different reasons why you might want to stop people using that device. There's a little button over here that says disable, and if I click disable on there, what it says is disabling your device will make it inoperable. Please select how you would like to disable it. And you've got a choice here, disable with a lock screen to block any use of the device until it's enabled again, or disable it with a factory reset. And if you choose disable with a lock screen message, this is the message that it's going to show. This device belongs to Georges Hall Public School in New South Wales. It can no longer be used. Please return it to your nearest New South Wales public school as soon as possible, or call the school number to report finding it. Okay, I want to disable it. Let's click the disable button. Now, this Chromebook, it's remote. It should get that message sometime fairly soon, and it should say, there you go. So it's now come up on my screen as locked, and it's got that message that says, please return it to Georges Hall Public School. That's a pretty powerful way of controlling fleet that's gone missing at your school. You can very easily then re-enable. So I've got a button here that says re-enable on my left-hand side of my screen. And if I do the same thing and click enable, what we should find is this Chromebook will automatically receive a message fairly shortly that will say, okay, you should be allowed to be used. There it goes. The screen goes blank and it basically restarts itself and says, yep, you're ready to go again. So that's that's a pretty powerful tool that's sitting inside your Google Admin console that you have. Okay, what else have we got? In here on this same screen, I'm looking at this one computer, remember? I've got these custom fields down here and I can edit them. I can come in here and add some notes, and I can say assigned to Stu Hasek and save that. And that is a good way that if you've got different devices that are assigned to different staff members or even assigned to students, some schools do one-to-one Chromebooks and the student gets their own Chromebook and they use it all the time, then what you can do is get out of here, go back to devices, and what we'll find is against that device, it will have, if I scroll across to the right, should have some notes here. There it is there, notes, and it says assigned to. So straight away in this table that you have on your screen, you can have these little notes assigned to help you identify who owns or who has what device. Or it could be a device that's in laptop trolley number 4. You can put in those sorts of notes in that area. So they're the sorts of things that you can do on the devices page. And it's a great way that you can keep track of all of the devices, what you've got, how old they are, all of those sorts of things. Let's move on, and we're going to have a look at Google settings or Chrome settings that you can apply. Now, in terms of settings, this is how Google settings work. We have Google default settings. So Google applies some default settings to the admin console at the top level, and all of their settings apply to every single device. But then on top of that, the Department of Education, or ITD, has its own common settings that it applies to all devices, things like the Wi-Fi settings and those technical infrastructure type configurations that we apply centrally to all devices to make sure that when you turn it on in a school, it's going to connect, it's going to work. But then in addition to that, if you're wanting to do a little bit more, if you're a Google Delegated Admin, you can apply your own settings, and those settings can be applied to work on the browser that's in the Chromebook, to work on the Chromebook itself, to work on groups of Google users. So in terms of groups being all staff at your school or all students in year 4 at your school, or to individual Google users. So you've got control of being able to provide additional settings that are the last settings applied, so they will override or they will govern how ultimately that Chromebook or those users use Chromebooks at your school. So let's go back and have a look at user and browser settings. So on the left hand side here under Chrome, you have settings, and you've got users and browsers, and you've got devices. So there are 2 different places to put different types of settings in, and you need to understand that there are a lot of settings and you will not understand what they all do. Some of them have got little question marks next to them that will give you some information as to what different settings will do, information. So there, it says what some of these different things are. In some cases, you'll have links off to information, but there's a lot of different settings, and I really warn you that you shouldn't be just playing with these settings. Really understand what it is that you're wanting to do, find the right setting and apply that setting accordingly. Don't go playing with other settings and changing them just because you can potentially cause problems with your entire Chromebook fleet. So again, these settings apply to different groups. So currently I'm looking at school staff, school 3702. So anything that I change in here will apply to every single staff member that logs on a Chromebook at your school. If I wanted to, I could separately say, let's apply it to every student at the school, and that would then have a different set of settings applied. Or I could drill down even further and say, I only want year 6 settings applied for user and browser settings. So you need to understand which settings, which group you're applying the settings to when you're making adjustments on these screens. The default settings that have been applied, particularly ones from the Department of Education, you'll actually see some that say that they are Department of Education settings. You'll want to make sure that you don't change those because they are expected settings that apply. And if you're having a problem with a Chromebook because of something that you've changed at your school level, that may cause difficulty when our teams are troubleshooting it because we're expecting certain settings to be applied for things to work. So it just makes things harder if you do go tinkering too far in these and you're not really sure about what it is that you're doing. So there's a lot of settings in here. We're not going to go through them all today. I'll get you to just take some time, have a look at them and see what they're all about, because some of them are really good and you can do some cool things with them. Some of them you may not want to be playing with at all. In the advanced session that we'll run later on, we're going to take a deeper look at some of these that you may want to consider applying, like things like custom wallpaper, changing maximum user session length and things like that. So there are some settings that you can apply that maybe will help with battery life on your device. Make sure that that the device isn't just running all the time, that you've got it to go to sleep or to turn off after a certain period of inactivity. You've got control over all of those sorts of settings. So the next thing that we're going to have a look at is apps and extensions. Now, this is a common thing that you probably will want to work with on your Chromebooks if you're managing them. We do want a way that we can make sure that our students have certain extensions, certain Android apps. If your Chromebooks are able to run Android, you may want to run things like Minecraft Education, or you may want to run things like the Wii video editing service if you've been given access to licenses for that, or you have access to licenses for that, or you want the Google Classroom app, or there's all sorts of different things that you can make available through the through apps and extensions. Now, apps and extensions, you need to understand, don't apply to the device. You're not putting an app or an extension on the device. You're associating an app or an extension to a user. So if you said you wanted to give the Wii video extension to students in year 6, because students in year 6 have all been granted a license for it, then you're applying it to the student, and it doesn't matter which Chromebook that student logs onto in year 6, that extension will appear on that device. So it's not that you're pushing out the app or the extension to every single device. You're giving it to students or to staff members, and those users are getting it when they sign on to the device. Now, apps and extensions, we have standard ones. Let me just click on this and go to overview. We have some standard apps extensions that have been supplied centrally, and in the case of this particular school, being Georges Hall, some of the apps they've deployed themselves. So we can see that this particular school here, which is 8 Central School, pushed out an extension called Images, which is a cool little extension that does magnified images of any image that you hover over. The Department of Education force installed a bunch of different things. So we've got the Palo Alto user agent, we've got the NAPLAN lockdown browser, we've got Janison Replay, we've got Nessa, we've got Google Classroom. So there's a bunch of things that have been deployed centrally by ITD. Coda is another one. But then you've got the school here, Georges Hall. They pushed out Zoom for Chrome, and that's been set up on school.
Hey everyone, I think we might have lost Stu just for a moment.
Did I lose audio then?
You did, but you're back on now, Stu, which is fantastic.
I'm sorry for that.
There we go.
My headphones decided to turn off, which is great.
I thought I'd done something on this side. I thought, what have I done? What have I done?
No,
that's good.
Not your fault.
You can get back to it, Stu.
Okay, so you can see here, Roblox has been allowed for year 2. you can see that that we've also got in year 4, they put something called Keep Awake in. So the school has gone and used Google Delegated Admin to deploy some extensions themselves. Now you need to understand some things about Chrome extensions, and that is that the Department of Education has got a browser extensions webpage that talks about approved browser extensions. There's a million extensions on the Chrome Web Store, and we are concerned as a department about the terms of service, the privacy and security of many of those extensions. And as a result, we did something called a browser extension lockdown, and we restricted which extensions you are allowed and you should be installing onto your Chromebooks, onto your Google Chrome browsers on Windows devices and Macs and so on. So there's a list of approved browser extensions. You can request browser extensions to be unblocked or approved, and there's a process for doing that, and that's all explained on this particular web page. This list of approved extensions is here, and you can go and have a look at all of those. So some of them say yes, some of them say no. So the ones that say no, some schools have said, can you please approve these? They've gone through a security check and they basically failed. And what it's actually come up in a lot of cases is there's an alternative approved product that you could be using instead of that particular one. We recommend you should be using this particular one, and so on. So you can see whether things have been approved or not. This list goes on and on. There's quite a few that have been approved and have been assessed. So please go through that and check whether what you're looking for using has already been approved. If it hasn't, you may want to consider putting in a request for approval. So let's go back here, and how do we go about getting something approved? Now, we were talking about extensions there, but as I mentioned before, you can also do Android apps. But before you do Android apps, you need to actually make those Android apps available for Chromebooks, and that by doing that, you're actually telling your Chromebooks to have access to the Google Play Store. So Android apps live in the Google Play Store, Android extensions live in the Google Chrome Web Store. So in here, this school's already allowed a bunch of different apps, but the way to get the Android apps enabled for your school, you have to do this once, is you got to go into apps and extension, users and browsers, and click this additional settings on the top right. And in here, you'll find a button that says Android applications on Chrome devices, and it must be set to allow. By default, it's set to do not allow. So you need to make it allow, and then you will have access to Android apps for being able to be pushed out on your devices. Okay, so let's go back to apps and extensions and overview in here. Into users and browsers. And this is where you can say that you want to add, and this yellow button on the right hand side is where you add Chrome extensions and Android apps. So Chrome extensions come from the web store, Android apps come from Google Play. There are a couple of other ways that you can deploy them, and that is if you know what the app is by its ID number, or if you know the URL of the app, you can use those two functions. But in most cases, you're just going to use this particular tool. So if I wanted to add an app in here and say I wanted to add the Wii Video app, you would come in here, type in Wii Video, do a search for it. It will find it here. You click on it and you can choose select. So make sure it's the right app that you're looking for. Click select on here. It will add it into the list and it will give you an option for how do you want it deployed. So in here, you can, by default, it's allow install. And that means you'd be telling your students, okay, go to the Chrome Web Store on your Chromebook and you'll find in there that Wii Video is now listed. But what you can do is also force install it, and that will push it out to every single Chromebook that is in your selected area, or every single Chromebook user, I should say. So you could say, I want it to go to year 6, which is what I've got selected at the moment. And if I said force install, only year 6 students are going to get that particular app. If I wanted it to go to all staff, if I wanted to go to all students in that particular school, then I'd be selecting it at that level. So that's where you go and set the install option, force install, allow install, etc. And when you do that, it simply adds it in there. Now, I don't want to do that to Georges Hall because they probably don't have Wii Video currently. So I'm just going to delete that particular app, and that will remove it from my Google Admin console. Now, if I wanted to add a Android app, I'll click this yellow plus again, and I'll choose the Google Play Store. And in here, they've already put Minecraft Education on, so I won't look at that one. But what I'll do is a search on here, and I'll go for, say, Sphero EDU. Some schools bought Sphero robots, and they want that particular app. So the same thing, you'll click in here, you'll say you want Sphero EDU. And what you can do is choose to select that particular app for your school. And again, you're selecting it for a particular organizational unit. So make sure you select those first. And then again, you've got an option in here to allow the install or force install. Now, you need to understand with Android apps, some of these can be very large. If you've got a Chromebook here, for example, like this one that's got 32 gig of storage, and you're pushing Minecraft Education for every single user that signs on to that device, and you click force install, you're going to take up a lot of your storage space as that particular app is force installed for each user each time they log on or when they log on. So you probably don't want force install, but you want allow install. And then your instruction will be to the student, go into Google Play, you'll find Minecraft in there, you'll find Sphero app in there, and click on it, and it will install for that user automatically. And that's a good way to make sure that you're not going to be filling up the devices. Another really good way to make sure that students don't fill up the devices is if you number all of your Chromebooks and you tell each student always go back to the same number that you used, means that their profile is already going to be on the device. It'll be quicker to log on, and all of their extensions and Android apps are already going to be on there. And that means the device is not going to have 41 different users. It might have 7 different users or 10 different users, depending on how many classes you have using your Chromebooks. It makes a big difference to the performance of your device going forward. So again, that has now added Sphero EDU with allow install for year 6. And again, I don't want to have that on there, so I'm just going to delete it. But that gives you an idea of the process that you go through to add apps and extensions onto your Chromebooks centrally. So you do that in one single location. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to take you through the last little things. And the thing that I've got here is blocking YouTube. We've had quite a few primary schools where they've been concerned that YouTube has been unblocked, made available to all users in restricted mode, and they don't want YouTube at all. We don't have a way of individual schools currently blocking access to YouTube on their Windows devices or on their iPads or other devices. But if you've got managed Chromebooks and you've got Google Delegated Admin, we can have a way of having those YouTube accesses by different year groups. You can say you want it for year 6, but you don't want it for the other years. You could turn it off for those. So the way to do that, you've got to go to the appropriate IO. So say you don't want year 1 to access it. And then in devices and in settings, users and browsers, what you're going to do is, I told you before, there's a big long list of different things in here. You can actually search for what you're looking for. So if I type in blocking in here and press enter, it'll show me all the different things for blocking. And one of them here is URL blocking. And I can come in here and I can say https://youtube.com. And there are various other YouTube shortcuts that you may want to add in as well. You can add 1,000 different URLs in this list that you can block for this particular year group that I'm currently blocking for. Hit the save button at the top, and that year group or that user in that year group is not going to be able to access YouTube on your managed Chromebooks. So I'm not going to do that here, but that's the place that you can do that. Printing. Very quickly, printing, we're not going to go through it here right now, but there is a really cool discussion that we had on the Google Delegated Admins community. How are schools configuring printers? And I asked that question, and different people came in. Timothy came in and said, if your school has paper cut, you can do it this way. And then I said, well, what if you don't have paper cut? And then Gary Stokes came in and said, although we do have paper cut, we're not using it. So if you don't have that, then you can follow these steps. And he's even given some screenshots on how to set it up in the Google Admin console to get printing happening. I don't recommend printing. I think we should be in a digital world. Paper's dead as far as I'm concerned, but some people still want to be able to print. You can configure printing on your Google Admin console. Over here, finally, we've got reports, and under reports, there is a section which is called Insights, which is a really handy way that you can get an overall look at your school's Chromebook fleet. So you can look at things like devices that are reaching end of expiry. So let's go back to school staff up here. We need to be in a school rather than, because none of our Chromebooks are in the student areas. So devices reaching auto expiry. There's none in the next year, but if we say all, what it will show us is that at this particular school, we've got in 2024, 44 devices are about to expire. They've got 460 that'll expire in 2027, so they'll need to think of a plan on how to replace those going forward. 2030, we've got 102 devices that are due to expire. So they got a good overall picture of the age of their fleet and how that's going. Further down, they can see that 91 of their devices haven't synced, so they haven't gone through that little thing that my device went through where I disabled it. It's never synced back to the Google Admin console. Could be because they're switched off, could be various different reasons. 94 different devices haven't been used in the last 28 days. So out of their fleet of 600 odd, 94 of them are sitting somewhere in the school, haven't been turned on. They might want to go looking for those. And if you click on that 94, it'll actually give you the list of which ones they are. 31 of them have still got devices pending the security or the OS update, and 429 of them have an OS version that is not compliant with policy. Now, what that means is they don't have the very latest version of Chrome OS, but they probably have the department's latest version, which is 113. So you get that information. You can get a breakdown of how many different models you have. So there's Acer, HP, Lenovo. They've even got Lenovo ThinkPads. So this school has some Google Flex devices enabled at their school. That's pretty much it from me for the Google Admin console. Joe, can I ask you to jump back in? Are there any questions? Are there any things that have been happening in the background that we can maybe cover as well?
Oh, look, Stu, I think you've done an absolutely amazing job. We've had some great questions that have popped up, and I know Tommy in the background has been eagerly jumping in and answering those for everyone. And also we've had some great feedback from members of the community, which is fantastic, jumping in and helping each other out, which is exactly what we want to see and what we always see inside Viva Engage. So I think that there weren't really any questions that were left unanswered. There was, a lot of chatter around can people add additional OUs, and we said not at present, but it's good to get feedback like that.
Yep.
A few people who've just had a couple of interesting issues with their delegated admin console that I know Tommy's going to go and investigate in the background. But I think we're seeing a lot of positivity to what you've been sharing today.
Okay,
that is for sure.
I know, Joe, I went through that extremely quickly. There was a lot to it, but the beauty is that with this Yammer Live event is that it's there as a recording, and you'll be able to pause it, you'll be able to rewind it, you'll be able to go through any aspect of it to replicate the same functionality on your Google Delegated Admin at your school. Joe, have you got something else there?
Look, absolutely. We just want to know what people thought of this session. That's for sure, Stu. So getting an idea of, what's happening, what they thought of this Yammer Live event, what else they might like to see, would be absolutely fantastic. That's for sure. So please make sure you give us some feedback. And I'm continuing to look in our question feed there, Stu, and I can see that, some people have been using that block website feature. So inside their Google Delegated Admin console, which is absolutely fantastic. We've also got some other interesting comments which we'll take away about how you might mirror your devices. So there's some really good feedback there for us as well. That is for sure.
It's less of a Google Delegated Admin function mirroring. That's more of just a Chromebook use function. But yeah, definitely we'll look at different ways of making that possible for people that haven't worked it out as yet.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I really like what you were saying, visit back to this same page. You'll already notice that you can rewind and play the actual session that we've been running right now, and it will remain available. And all of the commentary and all the web links that we've been sharing throughout will also remain there. And that brings up some really good points, Stu, and that was, we definitely want to see you on the T4L website, but also you mentioned some really important sites for people to go and visit to learn more, especially with, potentially getting new devices. How do you set them up? We've got that fabulous Chromebook management page. And you also mentioned the Google Delegated Admin page as well. So that's a definite one to jump to find out more if something's not working right, if you need to make sure there's a great plan if somebody else is taking over from you. That is for sure.
The pinned message at the top of this particular event on Yammer has got all of those links there, so you'll be able to jump straight into a lot of the things that I covered in this session. And as well as that, towards the bottom, you'll see that there are 2 links to Yammer communities. One is the Google Chromebooks community. Strongly recommend you join that if your school is wanting to get into Chromebooks, because there's a wealth of people on that every single day that are willing to help others who are doing things with Chrome or wanting to do things with Chromebooks and answering their questions. And the second one is the Google Delegated Admins community. Click on that and click the join button as well to make sure that you're in touch with other people who are doing Google Delegated Admin. And Joe, can I just share my screen again very quickly?
Oh, absolutely. And I noticed, Stu, while you're doing that, we have got a question from Liesl, and I think you just answered it. And if you share your screen, I can pop it up there for you, Stu. And that is about jumping in. Where can they ask more questions? And absolutely, the place to ask those questions is inside the Google Delegated Admin community. So, Liesl, go and pop them in there, and I know there'll be a plethora of people, including Tommy and Stu, who'll jump in and answer those questions for you.
And just to let you know as well, we've got our second episode of the 3D Print Doctor tomorrow afternoon at 3:30, exactly the same time. And we're not on Yammer, we're on Teams. And Greg Tardiani is going to be presenting that again. Last week's episode was quite amazing and really well attended, and a lot of people got to see some great things that are happening with the STEM T4L 3D printing kit. And then next week we have our 97th episode, I think, of Viva Hotspots. So please join us for that as well at 3:30.
Amazing, Stu. I mean, we've got so many things happening. If people didn't catch episode 1 of the 3D Print Doctor, then that certainly is something to jump back and do. That is for sure. And that might be a good thing to do before jumping into the session 2, because I know Greg's going to take it to another level in session 2. So that might be something to jump into as well. And next week we have got some some other sessions on STEM kits. So there's 2 webinars on STEM kits and one around designing and developing an app using Adobe XD, which is actually for students to run directly inside your classroom. So something to jump into. And we did also want to do a bit of a plug, Stu. If people are logging professional learning, naturally you need to make a decision about what standards you believe are addressed by the professional learning that you're seeing, but you can log these now through your digital PDP. So definitely something to look for. It's inside your staff portal. You can edit your essentials and search for My PDP, and you'll be able to, or rather the digital PDP, and you'll be able to add that into your portal. That is for sure. Well, Stu, I think we're coming to the end, aren't we?
We are. I went a little bit over time. I'm terribly sorry. We tried to get into 4:15 finish, but we've still managed to hold on to 60 people watching, so it was hopefully informative for you.
Oh, look, thank you so much, Stu, for going to all this trouble to prepare such a comprehensive session. Thanks to the team at George's Hall for giving us access to their Google Delegated Admin console, and Tommy and Paul in the background for answering those curly questions. If we haven't got to them yet, we'll hopefully get to them, or some of the team may reach out to you personally, but don't forget to jump into those Yammer communities to find out more. All right, well, I think we're going to end this session now, Stu. What do you think?
I think so. I think Yammer Live Events looks like it's fairly successful, apart from my little glitch with my headphones that decided to turn themselves off. But no, it looks like a very robust platform, and something that we possibly should be looking at for future events.
Sounds like a plan. Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining us. We couldn't do it without you, and thanks for all the work that you do each and every day, and keep your feedback coming. We love to hear it and hopefully help you and help get your students learning with technology. All right, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.